This is problem number 4 from section 3.5. In this problem it says two functions f and g are related by the equation g of x equals f with an input of x minus 2. Use the numerical representation of f to make a numerical representation of g. We can see that when we input x of negative 4, we get 4 for f of x. Negative 3, we get 2. Negative 2, we get negative 4, so on and so forth. It says complete the table of values below. It's giving us the output of g of x, and it's asking what was the input for x to get the output that we got here for g of x. Well, g of x is simply just f of x with an f of x's output. If we look at that there, we have g of x equal to f x minus 2. So g of x output, or g of x's outputs, are the same as f of x's outputs. The only difference is g of x's input, we take it and we put it in here and we input that minus 2 for f of x's input. So here's an example. Let's say I say g of, let's use g of 2. Well, that's going to be f of 2 minus 2, which is f of 0. Well, what's f of 0? Well, f of 0 is negative 8. Well, if you look at that, f of 0 is negative 8. That's what g of 2 is. Well, where's g of x, negative 8? Well, g of x is negative 8 right here. So that means the input that we had there is 2. So x is 2 when g is negative 8. That's what the input is. Okay, let's try another one. Let's try g with an input of, let's say 1. Well, then we get f of 1 minus 2, which is f of negative 1. What's f of negative 1? Well, negative 1 has f has an input of negative 1 for an output of negative 6. So f of negative 1 is negative 6, and that's what g of 1 is. So you can see that the input x value of 1 gives you an output of negative 6 for g. All right, we're just streaming it along with equal signs. All right, let's try g of 0. Well, g of 0, right, we come back to that function, is f of 0 minus 2. So it's f of negative 2. But we know f of negative 2 is negative 4. Well, f of negative 2 is negative 4. G is negative 4 when we have an input of 0. We do the same thing for g of negative 1. That's f of negative 1 minus 2, which is f of negative 3. Again, f of negative 3 has an output of 2. So f of negative 3 is 2, but that's what g of negative 1 is. And g has an output of 2 right here, so that means its input's negative 1. And now we do g of negative 2. That's f of negative 2 minus 2. And that's f of negative 4. And we know f with an input of negative 4 is 4. But g is 4 with an input of negative 2. And so I hope you can see how you piece that together. This is just saying whatever our input is for x, we're going to subtract 2 from it before we input that into f.